Yesterday as well, we had another first. This is a lovely photograph. We had our first CMALT ceremony here, so we had a lot of new CMALT winners, people who received their CMALT certification this year, and that was just some of them on stage yesterday, so that was a really fantastic thing. And again, it's so good to see that award being more recognised and more people being successful and wanting to get that award. And of course, I'm sure some of you realise that we're now doing some new pathways towards CMALT. So we've got ones for more new people into the profession, and for those of us who might have been in the profession for a few more years than that as well. So the Senior Fellowship. And we awarded our first Senior CMALT award yesterday as well. So that was wonderful too. First of many, I'm sure. So we've been sharing a lot in the sessions and obviously through the keynotes as well, but yesterday Maren introduced our fun postcard feature from Brian Mathers. So it's been lovely to see all the memories of ALTs over the years and from this year. So if you have any memories of ALTs or something you want to share, I know I've been looking on Instagram and Twitter, and there's some wonderful pictures coming through from everybody. So if there's anything you want to share, please send us a postcard. That would be fantastic. There are lovely things coming through. But now it gives me pleasure to welcome on stage a well-kent face to us all, Catherine Cronin, who's going to give us a bit of an overview, because as this conference is nearing its end, we've got something really exciting to look forward to next year with OER 19. But I'm going to hand over to Catherine to tell us a bit more about that.
Good morning, Manchester. See? On behalf of Laura Czerniewicz, my co-chair, and all the wonderful people in ALT, we would like to invite each of you to come to Galway next April for the OER 19 conference. So this will be the 10th annual Open Education Conference. And Laura and I have been very excited about having discussions with ALT about what that conference might be. And we feel like we are building on the great work of previous open education conferences. So a lot of the chairs are in the room here. So we want to acknowledge last year's co-chairs, David Kernahan and Vivian Rolfe. And prior to that, it was Lorna Campbell and Josie Fraser, Martin Weller. I can't name all the co-chairs, but I know it has always been a very exciting space for the kinds of critical and urgent conversations we need to have about open. So it's a little bit of a smaller conference, some of you may know, than ALT, but that's our intention, is to create that space in Galway for 2 days to talk about critical and global perspectives around openness. So we have wonderful stickers which represent the work of a lot of people. So there's an open access image that we chose. Brian Mathers remixed the image. Martin Hoxie had the idea of putting them on stickers. So we have a few more left today. If anyone would like one, please see me or Martin. And I'd be happy to answer any questions or speak with anyone in detail about the conference. All I can say is that the call for proposals will be out within the next couple of weeks. And in addition to having some really provocative themes, we also have some opportunities for people to contribute in novel ways, not just in papers or presentations, but in some kind of interesting ways. So please keep an eye on the OER19 hashtag. Okay?
Yeah. And not only does that conference get better and better every year, the stickers just get better. I think that's amazing. Just a little bit of housekeeping. Over the last couple of days, obviously, if you need our ALT desk has been the place to meet and ask any questions. So again, today, if there's anything you're not sure of, then please do go to the desk and the conference help desk, and we'll try and help you as much as we can. But as it is the final day, there are a couple of thank yous that we need to say to people, because this conference doesn't come together by itself. There are many, many people that are involved in it. I get the easy job, really, of standing here with my cup of tea and just talking. But there are many people who do that. And just thinking about the alt stand there, I think sometimes we forget how small a team we have in ALT. So I want to take, I'm not going to embarrass them too much, but I think some of the staff here, so I would like Tom, Emma Jane, Jane, Susan, Martin and Maren, just to stand up, and if we could all give them a round of applause, because they really put a lot of work into that. So thank you. It's an amazing amount of work that these guys do. But we have some other people who've been helping getting the conference together as well. And we've had an amazing conference committee. So I would just like, again, if there's anyone in the conference committee that's here, you thought you were going to get away with not standing up today, but anyone who's in the conference committee, if you could just stand up. And thank you all. You've been amazing. And of course, my fellow trustees who've, along with Martin, have really co-chaired the conference. So I won't make the trustees stand up again, but thank you too. Now, one of the things that we do, and I think we're getting progressively better at over the years as well, is our online presence. And we've been streaming more of the sessions than ever this year. And also, I think we've had this for a long time now, we have an amazing Twitter presence. But that's down to a couple of people who really make that happen. So again, I would like to thank Lorna, Rich and Scott, who are central to that. If you could all come down on stage and we could all say a big thank you to those fingers. So we have a couple of program changes that I'll just go through. Yeah, I'm trying to be Maren this morning and probably failing miserably, but I'll try my best. So yeah, and I have failed because the note I had, I'll get that from her. So we have some cancellations, and there was another session that has changed, which I think I have just inadvertently cut out of my iPad, but I will get that for you. But again, just as this is our final session, we've done a bit of Q&A before in the session, so I'm just going to invite John back on stage and just to have another couple of interactive elements to just kind of summarise what's been happening for you at the conference.
Right, good morning everyone. I know a number of you have been here all week, so I'm going to keep this introduction quite brief because I know you know how to use Me Too by now, but I know there are a few people here as their first day, so very, very quickly, Me Too is being used for Q&A in this main lecture theatre and also for some polling. In order for you to participate, if you could go to your browser on whatever device you're using and enter web.metoo.com. I'll give you a few seconds to do that. That's web.metoo.com. You'll also see in front of you there are some cards that have these instructions, but once you've got to the screen that invites you to enter the meeting ID, if you could enter the following number, it's 152 788 927. That's 152 788 927. Just a final comment as well to the reverse of the card, ALTC Bingo. If you want to participate, it's a bit of fun. You can do this via the hashtag ALTC Bingo, so please give that a go. Now, yesterday we asked you a question which we thought we would revisit again today. So I would like to ask you, and this will appear on the outer screen now, how many new people have you connected with at this year's conference? So if you could respond to that question, that would be great. Okay, just a couple more coming in. Okay, we'll take it there. See if we've shifted it from yesterday, which I think we have. So we've got nearly 47% of people saying that they've met more than 10 people, which I think is fantastic. So that's great to see. Now this final little exercise we want to do slightly risky. I'm just going to go to our Q&A board, and we would like you to participate by answering this, which I'm just going to move across. Okay, if that's appearing on screen, let me just, could you just shift the display for us slightly? The one at the bottom, sorry. So we can see that on screen. Okay, so I'd like you to, in 3 words, sum up your experience of the conference so far. There is no moderation in play, so a warning. If you could just shift that back down, Amy, please. Thank you. So 3 words that sum up your experience of the conference. Very awesome keynotes. What have we got? Coffee, excellent. Community, I'm not going to be able to read these, it's coming in so quickly. Hopefully you can see some of the themes up there. Lovely. I think we can leave those scrolling. Thank you very much. Q&A will be available all day, so hope you participate. Enjoy the day.
I think I just move this one. So thank you, that was great. And some lovely things coming there. I don't think the cake was a lie. I've had quite nice cake here, I would say. But again, another part of the conference that makes the conference happen is the sponsorship that we have. So I'm just going to invite a couple of our sponsors to come up and say hello in a few words. So first off, I'll ask John to come and say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila. Hi, everybody. Not too many hungover faces in the audience today. I expected more, but this is the first time I've come to an ALT event, so I didn't know what to expect. Just on that, it's been a great opportunity for us to be involved in the Association of Learning Technology in general. It's been a very great experience for us. We do a lot of EdTech events, and I'd probably say that this has been the most welcoming. Everybody here has been extremely supportive of us, so we'll definitely be participating as much as we can in the future. In case you didn't know me, I mean, you've seen my face on screens throughout the whole place, which is quite disconcerting for me. I'm John Wilson, I'm the CEO of Agenta. We run the vScene service. In case you don't know what that is and you've not had the opportunity to pop by the stand and speak to us, vScene used to be called Janet Video Conferencing Services, a long-running service from JISC. We took over ownership of the service and operation of the service just over a year ago. Our plan with this service is to expand it more as a tool for teaching and learning, for the delivery of immersive classrooms, interactive collaboration, and we've got ambitious plans for the service over the next couple of years. Doing a talk later today with one of our clients, Sean Farrell, a learning technologist at Heriot-Watt, and part of the Scottish University Physics Alliance. They've been using the vScene service to deliver all of their classes, quantum theory, quantum physics, astrophysics, that kind of thing. Very exciting opportunity for us to explain the use of vScene. And also within the session, I'm going to take some time to explain our ambitious plans for the vScene service over the next couple of years. There's some quite exciting features that we're going to be focusing on. So I'd just like to thank you again for such a welcome, and we look forward to next year. Thank you very much.
And I'd just like to invite Niels from Weisbo to just say a few words too.
I just have some quick notes. So I'm good. I'm Danish, so English is not my first language, so I've learned over the time that notes are quite important for me to have. So I'm Niels. I'm the head of sales at a company called Uniwise. We're Danish. If you can't understand what I'm saying, then please raise your hand and I'll try to make my English better. And thank you very much for the warm welcome. This is our second year, at the conference. Last year we were here as exhibitors in Liverpool. It's nice. We enjoyed it immensely. Enjoyed the great talks and the community. We've actually taken some of the feedback back and the discussions back, and then developed something in our platform to reflect sort of what the discussions are that we are doing this year as well. So we are going back to the drawing board and seeing what can we learn from the community and from the network of all these brilliant people. So thank you very much for having us sponsor this event. And we're kind of as you might have heard from my accent, we're Danish. So we are looking very much forward to Brexit. So we can go into the UK market and be sort of welcomed a bit more than after. So we're swimming upstream and opening an office next year here in the UK. So for us, it's really important to understand sort of the enhanced learning and technology enhanced learning. What is enhanced learning? What can we do around a digital platform? Ours is for assessment, so how can we close the gap from just being assessed on criteria that are not transparent, not fair for the students? Can we sort of close that gap, and can we make that gap a lot smaller? So that we do through the platform WiseFlow. So we support and improve the academic content. We support student learning, of course, taking all the different exams, not only doing 3-hour essay, not handwriting anymore. So, because how many of you will handwrite, or how many students will handwrite when they go into a working place? I know my bosses would not take a 10-page report written by my handwriting as legible sort of work document. So we're trying to alleviate that and trying to do everything by a computer. So right now, for the last year, we have done 70,000 exams in the UK for at 7 institutions. So we're quite proud of that. So we've shown that it's definitely possible to digitize summative exams. And we work within the framework of the UK higher education. So coming from Scandinavia, of course, we have learned a lot of things. And this is our sort of the market we are now targeting. So we are trying to wrap our heads around that UK higher education, like Danish higher education, like Swedish higher education, like Norwegian higher education is very much same, but very, very different from institution to institution. So that's our main focus in the coming years, is to support the UK community, the TEL community, and sort of the higher education here in the UK in the various processes. So that was all for me. Come by our stand, say hi, take a cup of coffee with you, or tea, or whatever you prefer for your hangover. So I hope to see you all, and thank you very much for your time.
So yes, as Niels has said, you can catch up with all our sponsors in the exhibition area as well. So I have found my notes and put my Maren head back on. So a couple of announcements. So all the sessions that were due to be in room 3204 have been moved to room 4206. So that's all the sessions that were in room 3204 have been moved to 4206. And also, we just have a couple of lost property announcements. Somebody left an iPad and a hat. I don't know if it was the same person. But if you have lost an iPad or a hat, then go down to the desk and claim them. So that's it. We've got a couple of minutes till our keynote. So I think I'll just give everyone a little chance to say hello, maybe finish your tea, and then we'll get on to our keynote, and I'll get Maren to. Is that okay? Thank you. I think we're ready to get going again. I hope everyone's in the room that needs to be in the room now. It's great to see so many people again. Say that, it's great to see so many people here on our final day. And I know that we'll have many more people watching online. So, as you probably realise, this is our 25th anniversary. And that has provided us with the opportunity to do things slightly differently at this conference, and I hope you'll agree that I think it's gone off really well. I've really enjoyed the conference so far, and a lot of that has been down to all of you, so thank you for that. So as we've said throughout the conference, Martin, myself and the other trustees have been far more involved in the organisation of the conference this year. And there's been a bit more focus on ALT itself, and we felt that was very appropriate because it was our 25th anniversary. And over the past couple of years, there's been quite a few changes to ALT as an organisation. We've changed our charitable status, we've developed and launched a new strategy, and if you were at the AGM yesterday, you will have seen that we've passed a resolution to update our governance structures to keep us in line with other charitable organisations that are similar to us, and also in terms of our responsibility and the guidance laid down by the Charities Commission. And I think these changes, and the other big change I should have mentioned there as well, is we've become a fully virtual organisation as well over the past year. And all of these changes are providing a really firm foundation for the association to move forward and grow for the next 25 years. And I think it's fair to say that as Board of Trustees, we've been very active in all of these developments, but they have really been driven by our CEO, Maren Deepwell. And when we were thinking of keynotes for the conference, both Martin and I were almost in one mind about this, that we both thought it would be a great opportunity for Maren to speak at the conference. Maren, as you know, has been our CEO for 6 years, but this is actually her 10th year working at ALT. So it's a bit of an anniversary year for Maren as well. And I think what this conference has shown is that ALT really is greater than the sum of its parts. And community is really important to me, as I think that came through from all of you as well, and on the Q&A that we did earlier there. And certainly as part of my tenure as chair of the association, I really want to support the community because I feel immensely proud and privileged to be your representatives and to chair our organisation. But Maren represents, and in many ways is the voice of our community on many stages. And to that, we are all very grateful. As you can have seen from this morning, I'm not very good at being Maren at times, but we're grateful for the work that Maren does. She's a wonderful ambassador and advocate for the association and the work of our community. But Maren is also uniquely placed now to give her own insights into the role of learning technology and leadership. I mean, Maren is a fantastic leader as well. And her own voice is becoming increasingly visible through her blog. Many of you might have seen the article that she published for Wonk HE on Tuesday. If you haven't, I urge you to go and read it. So on our 25th anniversary, it gives me great pleasure to invite Maren on the stage, not to organise me or anybody else, but to share her words of wisdom with you about advocacy on learning technology. So please give a warm welcome for today's keynote, Maren Deepwell.
Well, I'm really excited, and I have to say that Amber and Tracy have set the bar pretty high. I'm really grateful to my team and the trustees to make it possible for me to take a step back from organising this event and for being the face of ALT. I sometimes feel like I'm a building or a piece of paper when I walk into a room because most people say, "Hello, are you ALT?" And I'm like, yes. First day in the job, that was a bit of a shock. But I don't think I'm going to take a leaf out of giving you a marketing talk, or I've not brought any breakdowns of our pricing structure. I've also not brought any solutions. Instead, I thought I'm going to take the opportunity to share with you who I am and what insight I gain working at the heart of what you do. So I wanted to introduce myself by showing you a very tattered old laptop that I've used to do most of my work on and that I love dearly, and that from all of the contributions from member organizations over the last few years has become more and more colorful. The Captain Picard badge is my own addition because I'm a Star Trek fan at heart, and when I was little, Captain Picard and the Enterprise was my blueprint for what it was like to be a leader. I'm pleased to say that since then, I've met many wonderful, inspiring individuals, and many of them are here in the room today, who've diversified my role models of what it means to lead in learning technology. And I hope that in turn, I help to inspire some more diversity in our leadership. But I have a very privileged position, and I think that's one of the things I'm going to come back to speaking about later. Now, standing in my shoes is a very unique perspective, as Sheila mentioned. I get to work with everyone from ministers and policymakers in the UK and also internationally, to individuals who use a gadget for the first time, who might be struggling with PowerPoint, underneath desks trying frantically to plug things in, and all of the members from across sectors in the UK and internationally really inform my perspective and inform my work and my practice as a learning technologist. I can't cover all of that in less than an hour, but I do hope that I can give you some insight in what it means to stand in my shoes. I'm not from within one organization. I don't work in one college or in one university, although I have done my part of lecturing and being at the front of classrooms and supporting staff in the past. But I do have the privilege to journey all across our membership and meet many of you in person. And so all the photographs in my presentation today are taken from work trips that I've done over the last year, because as I'm trained as an artist and an anthropologist as well, I thought I'd show you in material and visual terms exactly what my perspective is made of. But the title of my talk and the theme for today is Beyond Advocacy, and I'm particularly interested in looking at the horizon and what's on the horizon. I'm going to start by quoting Audrey Waters, whose keynote a few years with us ago has really inspired me and also informs my thinking. And Audrey's work, in particular her work analyzing the recent Horizon report, has I think, been really interesting. And Audrey's looking at the Horizon reports each year when they get published and look what's on the prediction curve. So look at what's ahead, and then actually check back and see, has that come true? How many times have we predicted the same things coming up again and again on the horizon? And so Audrey wrote that after doing her analysis, which she's published as well, and I urge you to read, she writes that our takeaway, now and then and always, do not worry about what this report says is on the horizon. I bet you in 5, 10, 20 years' time, folks will still be predicting that it's almost here. Nothing in EdTech ever dies. It just gets renamed, rebranded as innovative, and stays in circulation forever. It's zombie EdTech, always on the horizon. And given that I did my PhD in cemeteries and I'm fully versed in all burial culture sundries, I think zombie EdTech is right up my street. And I'm incredibly frustrated at times with this narrative about what's always on the horizon and how that's going to solve all the problems that we have. And that's one of the questions that I hope to get to explore with you today. Because EdTech does keep promising us, and I think being locked into a sort of perpetual cycle of not arriving, of just advocacy for tech that does not deliver to its full potential. It's never really quite there where we think it could go. That's, I think, causing us some issues. And we can go back through the history of learning technology and come across countless solutions of solving problems. And I think some of the sessions at this conference who have been looking back into the history of learning technology, some from a more personal or feminist perspective, others more from a straight historical critical perspective, have helped really highlight that. there's always promises of cutting costs or reteaching teacher workloads to improve learning outcomes or to increase student satisfaction. But this outlook on a global scale, I think, places the UK on a national level in a policy context that I heard a Finnish education expert, Pasi Sahlberg, at OEB last year describe as follows. He had this wonderful diagram, and in my notes you'll see links to that. Pasi's shared some of the wisdom of why Finland is top of all the education league table, and he says there's two types of education policy making, and the type that he feels we have in the UK is characterized as market-led privatization, text-based accountability, deprofessionalization, standardization, and competition, resulting, in his view, in unsuccessful policy making. And I think, for me, there is part of our reliance on what the future might hold and the potential that might bring is partly responsible for our policy making, not maybe taking a challenge now. Now, advocating for what's just beyond the horizon, I think, brings three problems with it. And on this slide, which is from my visit to launch Alt Northern Ireland earlier this year, I've highlighted three that I feel are particularly key. First, it gives us the sense that technological innovation is the driver behind change, the only solution to solving issues that we face. I think the dominant narrative, the way I see it, is that we are at the mercy, we're not empowered of, we're at the mercy of inevitable innovation, of the march of the machine. So the robot that's marching towards taking your role, or the data that's going to control the rest of your life. And that we need to keep running in order to keep pace. And this in turn highlights the second problem, that a perspective informed by advocacy focuses only on what's ahead and increases our perception to compete harder with each other, both as individuals and between different institutions. We're always running to keep up. And the third issue that I've identified, and that I think comes out again and again, is that this perspective of continual advocacy for technology to solve our problems tends to ignore history, the research and the evidence that we now have. And we do have 25 years and more of research that ALT and other bodies have collated, and individuals like yourselves have contributed to. So I think one of the questions I want us to think about is whether being focused on advocating what's always just on the horizon, what's always just beyond our ability to make happen now, whether we're using that to absolve us from some of the ethical responsibility we have to really actively solve some of the issues now. And also from not being focused on some of the problems that we have right now and some of the real challenges I think we're facing here in the UK, but also as educators, as part of a global community. So I do promise there are some more cheerful parts of this talk as well, but the beginning of it I saw a little bit more critical. Now, I thought I'd make it 3 out of 3 for Martin Weller to be quoted in Keynote, so I think he does definitely owe us a book, particularly as he is not here now. But like you all, I've been following his blog posts on the 25 years of EdTech, and I found them really inspiring. I'm not going to be able to follow Amber's example and chart my timeline in learning technology against his blog posts, because I'm a little bit behind the curve 25 years ago and haven't discovered EdTech at that point, but I have followed his blog posts with great interest. So one of the quotes that I've drawn out is around how important criticality is to the role of learning technology and society at large. And Maren says that there's an increasing number of voices that articulate how things are changing, who are shifting the discourse to more critical ground. And he emphasizes our need to take a critical approach in our thinking, to examine the commercial interests that influence its development. For example, while learning analytics have gained a good deal of positive coverage regarding their ability to aid learners and educators, others have questioned their role in learner agency and monitoring and ethics. And I think that's just one example Martin's drawn out of where it's useful and constructive for us to take a more critical approach. I want to, I think, emphasize that this isn't critical against technology, but it is to be critical towards our use of it and our relationship to it and reflect on it more. Because I don't think anyone here would deny the huge potential of technology going forward, but also how much it's changed our lives all throughout human history, and particularly with digital technology in more recent times. So thinking about the voices that shape our discourse and maybe whom we're not hearing so much, I wanted to draw on the work of Catherine Cronin, who's been a huge inspiration to me and who's helped find some really helpful references for my talk in the run-up to this. And Catherine and Francis ran a great session at the start of this conference around personal feminist perspectives on the history of learning technology. And alongside them, practitioners and professors like Maha Bali, or Bon Stewart and Claire Thompson and Helen Beetham and Laura Chernovich, all inspired me alongside keynotes like Tracy and Amber here in thinking more about what we maybe don't read about, maybe the voices that we still need to be drawing out more. And Catherine wrote in her blog post before the conference that long-standing work in critical and feminist pedagogy, for example, is not often cited in later work about MOOCs, online open teaching pedagogy. Acknowledgement and analysis of earlier work is vital in the important in education. So I think I want to acknowledge and I want to use this platform and this privilege of having a keynote to talk to you today to also acknowledge some of the voices that are maybe more marginalized and that we aren't listening to enough, that we don't hear enough. So my vision, my hope, what I work for is to move us and to contribute to moving us to a more empowered and critical practice that enables us to negotiate and articulate our relationship with technology and how we use it for learning and teaching. Because with the ever-growing challenges facing us and decades of research and practice to inform our thinking, it seems clear that EdTech won't save us. And I think some of you might have the t-shirt to prove that. It won't save us, and it shouldn't be the driving force, in my mind, behind what we do. Instead, I think we have to move beyond advocacy for tech that is the answer to all our problems, and towards a more empowered and critical perspective. This isn't to say, as I mentioned earlier, and I want to emphasize this point, that technology doesn't have a significant potential, and I don't mean to dismiss in any way the role of industry that plays in the work we do, or how much technology can bring benefits for learners and in education in generally. But I feel strongly that it needs to be an empowered relationship instead of us being threatened to be buried under an avalanche. So my questions are, how do we move beyond advocacy? How do we realize our potential and the potential of our professional practice for the benefit of learners and for the greater good? World peace, I think, was one of the wishes that one of the delegates shared via Twitter for the future, so I'm going with that. And how do we move to using learning technology to meet some of the biggest challenges we're facing globally? And I'd like to explore those questions and leadership are a really good reflection of how our professional practice is embracing bigger questions and a more diverse kind of practice. Iteration, which is to be tech support for all my family and friends. So I'm pretty sure some of you have had phone calls and like, my email doesn't work, or how do you connect the TV to, you know, the newfangled something that's arrived. I failed explaining to my father how Wi-Fi works. We're still not sure what the cloud might be in my household. But also, I think particularly for anyone who works in the civil service, I would have suggested Learning Technology for Ministers 101, a recurring course every time someone new comes in. And then inspired by Lorna's sensational tweet of her wonderful Keynote shoes, Lorna, respect to you for those wonderful shoe tweets. To increase impact, I think that was the most widely tweeted tweet that ever came out of any of our events. So I'm expecting to see many examples of creatively translating our practice into portfolios soon. But also, I wanted to highlight that management and leadership, one of the areas that we've looked at throughout this conference a bit more, has really increased. And by really increased, I mean, you need to see this in perspective. There's a few hundred people in this scheme. Really increase is like in the single figures. So I don't want to give you the impression that there's a large amount of people as yet. But we do see more and more learning technology professionals choosing management or leadership specialisms as they move into new and more senior roles. Because their expertise in learning technology becomes more important as technology becomes more complex and our demands of what can be achieved for students and staff on a large scale become more ambitious. And I think very exemplary leaders that we have in the community, such as Melissa Heighton, who's sitting here with us, are great examples leading the way in what leadership in learning technology looks like in practice. And many of you have taken part in the consultation to make a new pathway for CMALT to enhance the professional recognition that Sheila mentioned earlier. And we've also been, or I've also been, having a little peek at what that looks like, what the senior CMOLD professionalization looks like. And I wanted to share with you just a brief glimpse of some of the specialist areas that are coming out from those individuals who are starting to pilot that scheme itself. And I'm not sure if it's quite big enough for you to read, but it includes scholarship of learning, of technology-enhanced learning and open access publishing, assessment, online courses and mobile learning, and also staff development, training and leadership. And similar to the earlier chart, where we had a look at when first specialisms appeared in our timeline, I think these choices reflect how our more senior roles in learning technology are developing their focus. Now, one of the big differentiators between this senior pathway and the existing framework is that you have to demonstrate an advanced area of practice, and it's very similar to the specialisms that we're familiar with, but you are specifically asked to relate it to the core principles of CMOLD. And I wanted to include this slide in my deck because I think it's really interesting when our members came together to try and articulate what the core principles were, which have not changed for over 10 years. It actually took a lot of discussion to come to a consensus of what these core principles are and how we interpret them. So, following the maxim that visual thinkery can probably express it a little bit more succinctly than we could with words, here are the core principles as articulated by members and captured by Brian Mathers, and that's hopefully going to help make our core principles more easily understood for our profession. And I think, to me, they reflect professional practice beyond advocacy. They are very much a reflection of a more critical, a more reflective approach to professional practice. And so these new advanced areas of practice, which you have to relate to these core areas, there's only a handful of those, because the pilot's been quite small, that we know of thus far. But I wanted to share with you the topics that participants have chosen from the pilot group. And they include research in postgraduate distance learning or blended professional development, to leadership of CPD programs, and leadership in the development of research and practice communities. And I wanted to mention the work of Tom Cochrane here, who is one of a long-standing member of ALT, who's based in New Zealand, who's not with us today, but I think he's demonstrated in his portfolio what a research approach to professional accreditation with CMOLD is. And I wanted to acknowledge that because very few individuals are as research intensive as Tom and have gone through this accreditation. So I think his portfolio is a real area of inspiration for us as we make the most of our research and practice. So while at the moment it is still quite a limited insight that we are gauging, it does give us a glimpse of what the kind of empowered critical approaches to professional practice and learning technology may develop into, and hopefully that will grow as a pathway. Now, given that this is Keynote for me, I thought I want to also contribute a bit of my own perspective on how I tried to go down the senior CMOLD pathway. And I think when I gained CMOLD 2 years ago, I thought it was really rewarding, but I was also really relieved. Having advocated for a scheme for years, I put it to the test and found it to be a valuable and rewarding experience. And in retrospect, I felt all the more honest and frank about all the advocating that I'd been doing on behalf of the scheme in the years before. And so when I started thinking about my senior CMOLD submission, I decided that I wanted to choose promoting equality in learning technology as my advanced area of practice, because that's one of the causes that I'm really passionate about and that I feel we have a long way to go in. And as soon as I'd done that, and I looked at providing evidence and description of what I'd done, I realized that my fantasy CMOLD specialism might easily turn into a nightmare. And so before I go and share a little bit more about this with you, I just wanted to unpack this part of my work and why I think it's really important and why I specifically chose it to feature it. And I mentioned at the very start that I feel I have a real position of relative privilege. but I nonetheless experience inequality all the time and every day. And in the space in which we work, learning technology sits at the intersection of the tech industry, of education, politics, and the third sector. And when I started working in this space, I had no concept of how much inequality I was going to encounter and how much more inequality other people were going to be faced with. And you can tell already that I found it quite hard to write about this dispassionately. And I had a very friendly, critical friend and editor who helped me try and edit this into something that is other than just a complete rant and becomes more of a sort of dispassionate statement of professional practice. And one of the inspirations that Catherine reminded me of was Laura Chernovich's really inspiring keynote here 3 years ago, where Laura stood on this stage herself and talked to us about inequalities in higher education. And she made us reflect on the structural nature of inequality, thinking about it on a national and on a global scale, and not just in the global north or in the west, but all across the world, and thinking really about the bigger picture. Because it's very important for us to look at the examples of inequality from a global perspective, but not to be blind to what's closer to home, because there's still a long way to go. And I think any person working through the strikes and through the disputes over recent years will see that there is a lot where we can still fight for. And I also feel really passionately about the fact that equality is for everyone. It isn't a women's thing. This isn't for some of us. This involves all of us. And I gave a talk at ILTA a few years ago, which was all about that. It was a 5-minute Gasta, which was just about the fact that equality was everyone's responsibility. So I thought the need to promote equality and my practice response to that would be a great example of practice to include in my portfolio. And I specifically chose it because I think it's important for us to highlight that this is an area of learning technology that we're not going to really find on job descriptions, that is not usually going to turn up in a sort of record of achievements or at annual appraisals. And I'm very fortunate that I'm in a position where I can hopefully demonstrate, it hasn't been assessed yet, so it might all turn into nothing, but I'm hoping to have demonstrated that this is an legitimate and integral part of professional practice as a learning technologist. And at this point, I wanted to show you 2 examples of the initiatives that I've supported and included as evidence in my portfolio. So I'd like to give a big wave to every Fem EdTech participant in the room, and I know there's quite a few of you out there. And I think initiatives like Fem EdTech really help us create more diverse, a more inclusive perspective and community. And this isn't an effort that's only relevant to those involved, but hopefully one that will reach out, because many initiatives come and go, and there isn't enough, in my view, joined-up thinking. And we've done some joined-up thinking with Uncommon Women as well, grassroots project that we've been supporting, and maybe we can also see some familiar faces I've watercolored in. But projects like Uncommon Women demonstrate that one of the key ways in which we can achieve a greater critical perspective is through more collaboration, more knowledge exchange, and openness. Our practice is political, it's personal, and active participation in any of these initiatives does make a difference. And if I've learned anything from the individuals who lead these initiatives, who've inspired me to be active and to participate and to give my time and my effort and my voice to these causes, is that it does make a difference. It helps us articulate a narrative that isn't dominated by tech advocacy alone, and expands our personal learning networks beyond those we already know and feel comfortable with, help us burst those filter bubbles that surround us. So this is my favorite slide. Ooh, no. Oh, I'm missing my favorite slide. Great, I clearly have deleted that. Sorry about that. I was going to show you a picture. I'm just going to talk through it. I was going to show you a picture of a box that I got through the mail a few months ago from my mentor, Margaret, who I've known for 6 years. And I had a big day coming up at work that I was nervous about. And it was a little blue and white striped box made up in a sort of Superman style, sort of superhero style. And on the cover it said, "Empowerment Pants, Super Undies for the Hero in You." And I was so thrilled to receive that. It's from a charity project in Scotland that supports women and girls. And you buy the pants, and it's a charitable donation. But you also get a pair of pants that say Empowerment Pants on them. And you can wear them on special days. And I'm not wearing them today, just in case you're wondering. But I thought it was a wonderful gesture, because the person in us that needs some encouragement, that needs some empowerment, might get that in any way possible. And I thought it brought a humorous and charming and very personal way of sending me some encouragement through the mail. So the point I did want to make, telling you about Empowerment Pants, is that criticality and collaboration are at the heart of our professional practice, and that it enables us to work in partnership with industry, to inform how the products and services that we use are developed, and to influence policy that effectively governs our relationship with technology and the tech industry. We do have the power, we do have a voice to shape what the future will look like. And then the last part of my talk, I wanted to share with you a little bit about what I think others have said to that. But I also wanted to highlight, just before I go and do that, one more example of practice that I haven't really mentioned, which is around the collaboration aspect, and that I also used in my portfolio. And as well as the FemEdTech project I mentioned, I wanted to mention a collaboration to make a policy paper for policymakers and give them a call to action for openness in education. I wanted to give an example as collaboration working with startups, which I did this year with some of the community, where we worked on a guide on how technologists and startups can work together. And one project that's close to my heart is on open leadership, because when I became a CEO and I looked around for examples of how CEOs do their business and how they get work done, I couldn't really find a lot of open leadership. All I could find is, really polished marketing, written blog posts about charity fundraising or success. And I found that really off-putting, and I thought, where are the reflective blogs of people in my position? And so I thought we must start as senior staff and lead the way. So Martin and Hawksy and I, for the last 6 months, have been blogging on the go about our efforts to lead a new virtual team with the consent of all of our colleagues, which we're grateful for. And we share our work in progress with that. So all these sparks of openness and all the sparks of collaboration that networks like the Uncommon Women Network and FemEdTech, and collaborations such as these, and all the events such as this as well bring together, I hope will spark some openness and bring us towards being more critical together. There are the pants, you see. So you get my favorite slide after all. Right, so now to close, I wanted to share with you what the future might look like, and I particularly wanted to not do that in my own voice. Because while I do have a strong vision for the future, and when I first came to the ALT conference in this venue in 2009, certainly things looked different, and now much of that has come true. It is really your voices and your action that is going to shape what we do next, where we go in learning technology, not just as a sector, but as professionals, as individuals, as people. And so Martin Hawksy and I were invited to give and to host the LTHE chat, so a shout out to all of you who participate in that. I am a frequent lurker, sometimes participant, and I absolutely love this Wednesday evening Twitter chat. And we asked, as a topic, we gave developing critical and open approaches to learning technology. And at the very end of the talk, we had a question for all the participants. And the question was to share a hope, their hope, for the future of learning technology. And I hope you can read these tweets yourself, but I also want to emphasize some of what they say. Because their vision for the future of learning technology is to be inclusive, not a bolt-on, not an alternative, lesser experience. That all education is open, that we will scrutinize the that we will have greater scrutiny of results and greater understanding of the process followed to produce the results. And they also highlighted the need to raise the lowest level of engagement with technology and pedagogy, as well as supporting those at the cutting edge. And I think this conference is a great example of bringing all of those different perspectives together. But I think my favorite hope of that evening that really struck a chord with me was from Simon Lancaster. And he wrote that he hopes for a symbiotic and ultimately synergetic relationship with pedagogy to be established, which facilitates a revolution in society's objectives for our education system. So in case you were wondering what you were going to be doing in the future, I hope you take Simon's hope to heart. And as you can see from this wonderful, messy graph of our conversation that you can explore yourself online with Tags Explorer, we have had so much responses to this conversation that I felt it was only fitting to bring my keynote on Beyond Advocacy to a close by asking you to share your vision and by inviting you to share your hope. Because I hope to do an even better job next year round advocating for you and representing you and contributing to the work of the association, but I want you to hopefully also have a voice in this keynote and in this vision going forward. Now, I mentioned that 10 years ago I came and started working for ALT in 2009 in Manchester. This was my first conference. I have to say I was thoroughly intimidated after 3 days. I think I went home and I thought, never again. And never did I think that only 9 years later I would stand on the stage and have the privilege of talking to you and sharing some of my thoughts and my vision. So now it's over to you. And before we go and have questions, I'm hoping that you will be able to share your hopes and we'll leave them up on screen. So what is your hope for the future of learning technology? And just to close, a final thought from me, and thanks for all the badges that I received as part of my travels recently. I just wanted to encourage you all to use your platforms and use your voice and use that inspiring approach that Amber talked to us yesterday, that if you are invited to the meeting and you have a voice, that you can lean in, that you can make your voices heard. Not everyone has the privilege to stand up here, but we all have a voice that makes a difference. And so, inspired by Martin Weller and my early morning running, where I like to listen to quite a lot of Public Enemy, I'm going to leave you with that quote and say thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Well, I think that was a wonderful keynote to finish, or to get our third day started. I'm sure there are many questions from the audience, and there'll be many questions coming through online. But is there anyone here in the room that would like to ask Maren a question first? Come on, it's the last day. Somebody take the mic. Come on. No? Well,
They're all hungover.
they're all hung. Okay. Well, we've got lots of questions coming through, so I'm going to let Maren maybe have the prerogative of choosing one of the questions that she would like to answer. There was a lot in that keynote, so.
I think it's an interesting point about diversity. I think some of us discussed this yesterday, what the relationship is between collaboration and diversity and bringing in different voices to the work that we do as professionals. I think it's really important, particularly at conferences like this, that we're seeing increasing participation from students, we're seeing increasing participation from people who might have not been part of this conversation 10 years ago. It's a really important survival strategy for us to reach out and to engage more people. All of you have got the challenge of implementing and working learning technology at scale. We're far beyond just the pilot study, just one room, just the enthusiasts. for learning technology, I feel to reach its real potential, for us to make happen what we think is possible, we do need to be more diverse, be more inclusive. So I feel that's a really strong point to be making.
Yeah.
It's nice to read your hopes as well.
Yeah.
Should we read any out at all?
Well, I think this is,
You can read them
my
all.
hope is that we can engage with academics on a level playing field without having to declare our credentials first or just be seen as the people who do the tech stuff. And I think there's many people who feel like that. But I think there's one thing that's come through for me over the past 3 days is, I suppose, a confirmation of that need for balance and for mutual respect. And I'm really pleased that we are looking at things more critically, but there is a balance to be struck in terms of what we're all ultimately trying to do, which is to support staff and learners and engage, the educational process. So it's quite a fine balancing line. But yes, I don't think any of us should have to justify anything that we do, that there should be mutual respect for everyone in the profession. And again, I just want to say, I told you all earlier on that none of you are imposters, so I don't want any more of this imposter syndrome talk, okay? It's my last day as the boss, so I'm making the most of it.
I think we're all quite enjoying you being our boss.
Yeah. Obviously, more cake is great. Yeah. Well, this is a good question. Will learning tech become its own academic field in time?
Oh, that's an interesting question. That's quite a tricky question, actually, because whatever I say, half of you are going to disagree entirely. So I suppose one perspective is to say learning technology as a professional discipline has existed for a long time, and the fact that we celebrate our 25th birthday is testament to that. There is other organizations like us all across the world, although we don't all use the same terms to describe what we do. Indeed, I think not even within this one country we have less than 10 terms to describe learning technologists, even just a core role. One of the strengths I feel with learning technology is that we do borrow and work with other academic disciplines. We get a lot from social sciences, but also from education and computer science. Learning technology is very much part of the fabric of all learning and teaching. I'm not sure if I feel that it should be necessarily its own academic discipline, because I feel it's very overarching, it's very embracing, and the research that I've seen published comes from a lot of different backgrounds and disciplines. But it's right what Amber said yesterday, that there's huge differences between the disciplines. So I think working across the different disciplines in order to gain different perspectives is one of the key importance.
Absolutely, and I think again as the ALT develops, we have quite strong partnerships with other member organisations as well, and other organisations in the UK and internationally, and I think we can link in and actually make a fantastic contribution to scholarly practice across the disciplines, which maybe comes from our own TEL background, but then can be applied to other areas as well. So I think that just extends our collaboration and the power that we all have, and the great work that is being done across all our institutions.
There's some great question coming through. I'm enjoying the "we are rebels, we should rebel." But also I think there's some interesting questions around if we are being more critical in our approach, is there still a role for advocacy? And also, do we have to mention learning technology if it's just integral? Maybe we can pick up both of those points. So on the first one, I think there is a very strong case for advocacy for learning technology, absolutely. I feel personally critical towards advocacy for EdTech without questions asked. So I'd like us to be more discerning in what we ask of our educational technology, not be opponents to it. Indeed, that's our bread and butter. But in terms of being integral, that's a really interesting question. And one of the winners from from yesterday's awards actually analyzed strategies from higher education institutions in the UK and looked at their strategies for learning technology, or if they had strategies. And he came across this problem very strongly. So if it's integral, do you still need a strategy? Do you need to mention it? So I think you should read his paper to find the answer to that question. But also, I think it's important to remember that being integral doesn't mean that the work is done. I think in some ways it's even more difficult when it is integral, becomes more complicated, more complex, and the role of the learner and their rights and their concerns, I think, needs to be integral regardless of how explicit or implicit our use of learning technology is.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to some of the things that Tracy was highlighting on Monday about context. Yeah. And I think at different times, well, you have to think of advocacy in terms of the context in which you're going to be using technology, or when someone is suggesting the use of technology as well. So I think context is key in that, and that does change. And we have to be aware of our own context, some of the institutional context that we work in, many of the things that Amber talked about yesterday as well. So I think we have to come back to that. Context and criticality are key.
Great. Shall we do one more maybe? I'm quite surprised no one wants to ask any questions, but they're all typing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we haven't checked Twitter yet. There's probably a lot in the team.
I like this comment around, at some point learning technology will just be learning, and I come across that all the time, and I agree entirely. But on the other hand, I also think it sidesteps a lot of people's very unconvinced approach when they're like, well, but if it's just learning, then we could just do what we did before and we don't have to go on that whole journey. And I still meet a surprising number of people who somehow hope technology will go away, that it'll be absolutely fine not to do anything, and they can just ignore it. And wherever we are on the spectrum of adoption, there's a surprising number of these people, and there's a surprising number of organizations who are ill-equipped or don't have the infrastructure or the capacity. And we are here because we know that it is a big deal, because we know it's important to our professional practice. But I don't think our work is done in that respect at all, not in this country and not anywhere else in the world. And if learning technology just becomes learning, I really hope that it truly comes into its own, not that we forget that we've all been working for decades to establish all the ways in which it can be learning, just for people to then forget that there's actually a whole journey to be made. So for the time being, I think, and also just to not talk myself out of a job, I'm going to say that I hope learning technology is going to be relevant and very needed and in the heart of what we do for a long time to come.
Okay. And I think that's the perfect point to end this keynote. Again, can I just ask you all to thank Maren again for a wonderful keynote. And of course, Maren will be here for the rest of the conference as well, if you want to ask her any questions. But I think we can all go for a well-deserved cup of tea or coffee. Thank you.
I'm John Wilson, I'm the CEO at Agenta. We're a technology company that focuses on education